They really hate each other now, and they cannot hide it anymore.
She was the villain.
How was she dangerous?
Because of the need for her to rehabilitate her image.
I know my latest money-making scheme is going to be cosplaying the final night that Princess Diana died. It's truly sick. He just doesn't seem to give a damn.
The cameras were meant to capture another picture-perfect royal moment, the kind that gets replayed everywhere. Instead, they picked up something colder, something that felt off right away.
Body language. My God, no amount of PR spin is going to deal with that.
When Prince Harry stepped out of that black SUV in New York, his expression said more than any headline ever could. His silence wasn't calm, it looked controlled, like he was holding something back. His jaw was tight, shoulders stiff, every movement sharp under those flashing lights, like pressure building in real time.
You completely see that she is shaken by this.
Next to him, Meghan Markle moved completely differently. The smile came on instantly, polished and camera-ready, like a switch flipped on cue.
Maybe he is still very upset over her stunt over in Paris. I can't imagine that didn't go unnoticed by him.
But side by side, the contrast was impossible to ignore. The gap between them felt wide, and people noticed it fast.
See her face. You get here, mate. But on stage, when they knew everyone was filming on their mobile phones and taking pictures, it got even worse.
Then everything shifted. A voice from the crowd cut straight through the noise, loud and direct, "Stop using our children." And in that split second, something changed. The energy snapped, the moment cracked, and for a brief flash, that carefully managed image didn't look so steady anymore.
They would tell you it's for protecting children online, but then why is Meghan Markle at a Balenciaga show accused of predatory behavior in the form of children's images?
Harry's head snapped toward the sound, and for a split second, that calm image dropped completely. The reaction was sharp, almost instinctive, like something hit a nerve deeper than expected. That flash of frustration didn't last long, but it was there and people caught it. Then came the movement. Prince Harry reached for Meghan Markle's arm, quick and firm. Not soft, not affectionate, just direct, like he wanted to move things along fast. His lips moved, saying something under his breath, but the words never made it past the noise. What did come through was the tension, thick enough to feel even through a screen. The cameras didn't stop. Flash after flash, voices calling their names, reporters pushing for a reaction. But something had already shifted. Those smiles, they didn't land the same. They looked practiced, controlled, like two people trying to stay composed while the pressure kept building around them. From that moment, the energy felt different. Not polished, not perfectly staged, just unpredictable. The same man who once spoke openly about protecting his wife from intense public scrutiny now looked more guarded, more inward, like he was focused on holding everything together in that exact moment. They kept walking the red carpet side by side, but the space between them felt noticeable. Every step looked coordinated, yet slightly out of sync. To the public, it still looked like a high-profile appearance, but to close watchers, it felt more complicated, like something unspoken was playing out right in front of everyone. And that's where the real questions started getting louder. Not just what people saw that night, but what might have led to that shift. Because whatever was going on, it didn't look like the same easy connection people once believed in. And that contrast is exactly what kept everyone watching.
The simmering tension between the duplicitous Duke and his facelift-enhanced wife. Here's the red carpet arrival.
Hey, Harry, when you go upstairs?
New York City was alive that night. Sirens echoing, cameras flashing, energy building from every corner. Everything about it was set up to feel like a major return moment, the kind that puts Prince Harry and Meghan Markle right back at the center of attention. After a quieter stretch out of the spotlight, this was supposed to be a reset. The venue glowed in warm, golden light, carefully designed to signal renewal, a fresh chapter. But behind that polished look, people on the inside were already picking up on a different energy, and it didn't match the script. Some attendees and staff later described tension building even before the doors opened. There were quiet whispers about a strained moment inside the SUV just before arrival, nothing confirmed, but enough to make people look twice. One observer noted that Harry appeared unusually serious, his expression more closed off than expected, while Meghan stayed focused, composed, adjusting her look without much interaction. Then came the entrance, the moment everything was supposed to come together. Cameras locked in, producers ready for that flawless walk. But something shifted. Harry stepped forward first, slightly ahead of Meghan, his pace quicker, his attention fixed straight ahead instead of engaging with the crowd. It was subtle, easy to miss if you weren't looking closely, but for those watching carefully, it stood out immediately. The timing felt off, the coordination slightly out of sync, and just like that, what was meant to be a smooth, unified moment started raising quiet questions instead.
And then you see her naked feet crisscrossed in front of her, like the world is at my feet. Ha ha ha. This is so fun. This is where my children's grandmother died. Good times. Let me put this online.
It wasn't the first time people thought they spotted tension slipping through the polished image. Weeks earlier, at a private industry dinner, there were quiet observations that caught attention. Meghan Markle was seen reaching for Prince Harry's hand, and he appeared to pull back slightly while saying something brief under his breath. Nothing loud, nothing dramatic, but enough for nearby guests to notice the shift in tone. One attendee later described the moment as subtle, yet telling, like the easy warmth people expected just wasn't fully there. It didn't create a scene, but it did spark quiet conversations among those paying close attention. Now, PR analysts and body language commentators have started weighing in, pointing out that moments like these often build over time. According to them, what people saw later in New York didn't come out of nowhere. It looked more like a continuation of something already developing behind the scenes. Still, there's no single explanation. Some observers point to the pressures of constant public attention, others to the challenges of balancing personal and professional lives under that level of scrutiny. But one account, said to be familiar with Harry's circle, suggests the turning point may have started somewhere else entirely, in Paris.
Especially when he's on the BBC saying that it's not safe enough for my family in the UK, but it's safe enough for Meghan to be alone in Paris, literally engaging with the paparazzi you say killed your mother.
To the public, it looks like a flawless comeback. Prince Harry and Meghan Markle stepping onto that red carpet, polished, confident, completely in sync. Or at least that's how it was meant to look. Cameras lit up the scene, flashes going non-stop, the kind of moment designed to dominate headlines and reset the narrative overnight. For weeks, this appearance had been built up as their big return, the moment everything shifted back in their favor. Every detail was carefully planned, from the wardrobe to the pacing to the angles. Meghan stood out in shimmering gold, every movement controlled, every glance timed perfectly for the cameras, like she knew exactly where every lens was pointed. Harry followed in a sharp tuxedo, moving alongside her as the crowd reacted from behind the barricades. On the surface, it looked like resilience, like two high-profile figures owning their moment despite everything said about them. The image was strong, clean, powerful. But the illusion didn't hold for long. The second those flashes intensified, something felt off. Even through live streams, viewers started noticing it. Harry's expression didn't match Meghan's energy. While she stayed camera-ready, he looked more restrained, like he was pushing through the moment rather than enjoying it. A small exhale slipped through, barely noticeable, but it was there. A flicker of strain that cut through all the polish, something no amount of preparation could fully hide once the cameras were locked in.
Harry's speech was so lackluster, Tash. As you say, I think he's furious about what went on in Paris, but they couldn't cancel this event. What?
Then, right in the middle of the noise, it happened. One voice cut through everything, sharp, direct, impossible to ignore. Stop using our children. The energy shifted instantly, like the entire moment paused mid-motion. Cameras caught the reaction in real time. Meghan Markle's smile tightened just slightly, but enough to notice. Prince Harry's jaw locked, his eyes moving quickly toward the source before snapping back toward the entrance. It didn't look like surprise, it looked more controlled than that, like he was processing it fast under pressure. Then came the movement again. Harry reached for Meghan's arm, firm and immediate. Not a soft gesture, not for show, but purposeful, like he wanted to shift direction without drawing more attention. To the cameras, it could pass as guidance, just part of navigating a crowded red carpet. But to those watching closely, it carried a different tone. From that point on, the night felt different. They stayed on script, smiling, posing, acknowledging the crowd, everything expected at an event like this. But something about the connection felt less natural, more measured, like each step was being carefully managed in the moment. To the public, it still read as glamour, a high-profile appearance under bright lights. But for sharper eyes, it looked more complicated. Not chaos, not collapse, but a shift in energy that was hard to ignore once you saw it. And that's what kept people talking long after the night ended.
Our children, Archie and Lily, are just 6 and 4 years old. Luckily, still too young for social media, but we know that day is coming.
Now, Meghan, the actress, of course, had to stick to the script. And so we had the hilarious, she's trying to talk about the need to protect children from social media, even though she's pimping out her own children wherever she can, causing these tensions.
On the surface, everything looked smooth, polished, exactly how a major public appearance is supposed to play out. But once the footage started replaying, slowing down frame by frame, a different story began to emerge. The details became louder than any headline, and suddenly every small movement carried weight. The distance between Prince Harry and Meghan Markle didn't show up in obvious ways. It wasn't about where they stood, it was in the gestures. Harry's hand stayed low by his side, fingers shifting slightly, like nervous energy he couldn't fully hide. When Meghan reached toward him, she kept that camera-ready smile locked in, but the timing felt just a beat off. At one point, Harry blinked hard, a quick reset like someone trying to stay composed under pressure. Observers who study public appearances often point out these subtle cues, describing moments like that as signs of emotional strain or someone pulling inward to stay in control. Others noticed Meghan's reactions landing just a second later than expected, like everything was still coordinated but not fully in sync. It gave off the impression of two people following the same script but not quite feeling the same moment at the same time. And for those who had been watching closely over recent appearances, this didn't feel entirely new. Similar moments had been pointed out before, where interactions looked slightly tense or out of rhythm. But in New York, under brighter lights and heavier attention, those small details didn't stay small anymore. They stood out, clear as day.
The New York Times are finally realizing, actually, his wife might be a disaster tourist, but he is a disaster when it comes to charity, especially African charity, because he doesn't actually give a damn. For years and years and years, he used Africa because it was good for his PR.
Behind the scenes, the tone felt different, and people started noticing. Conversations among staff and insiders hinted at moments of tension earlier in the evening, with reports that preparations didn't go as smoothly as expected. One person involved in styling mentioned the fitting process ended quicker than planned, while another recalled hearing raised voices in passing, followed by a sudden quiet that stood out just as much. What caught attention wasn't noise, it was the silence that followed. Some described Prince Harry as becoming more reserved in those moments, stepping back rather than engaging, a shift that didn't go unnoticed by those nearby. Once the red carpet footage hit social media, viewers began analyzing everything. Side-by-side clips spread fast, showing subtle differences in posture and timing. Harry often appeared slightly angled away, his expression more neutral, while Meghan Markle leaned toward the cameras, maintaining that polished, public-facing presence. Photo agencies framed the images as elegant and composed, but online discussions quickly added more layers. To some, it looked like a couple managing a high-pressure moment. To others, it felt more complex, like something beneath the surface wasn't fully aligned. By the end of the night, even some event staff were quietly rethinking the vibe. One observer described it as watching two professionals move through the same scene with precision, but without the ease people expected. And that's what stuck with everyone, not what was said, but what didn't quite connect, leaving one big question hanging in the air. What had shifted behind the scenes to make it feel this different?
If I know that this is a place that my husband hates because it's where he lost his mom, I'm not going to go there.
To understand what people are pointing to, you have to rewind, not just to New York, not to California, but back to Paris, where many believe the tone first started to shift. Before the cameras in Manhattan, there was Paris, a trip that was expected to highlight elegance, fashion, and a strong public presence. On the surface, it delivered exactly that. Front row appearances, couture looks, flashes of luxury, everything lined up for a standout moment for Meghan Markle. The images that circulated showed confidence, control, and a carefully curated narrative. But some observers described a different feeling behind those images. Prince Harry appeared more reserved during parts of the visit, keeping his focus forward, while Meghan engaged with designers and cameras, maintaining that signature composure. To the wider audience, it looked like glamour. To closer watchers, it felt more distant, more measured. Then came a moment that drew particular attention online. Footage shared from the visit showed Meghan walking near the Pont de l'Alma tunnel, a location widely known for its historical significance. The clip was brief, calm on the surface, but once it circulated, reactions quickly followed across platforms. Public response was mixed, with some viewing it as a simple moment from the trip, while others questioned the choice of location. And while the online conversation grew, what mattered more was the shift it seemed to signal, because according to some accounts, that moment didn't just spark public debate, it marked the beginning of a deeper tension that would later become harder to ignore.
Harry usually introduces his wife, not last night. And my God, the look she shot him. It's like, you just wait till we're back at home.
According to accounts from people familiar with the couple's public journey, that Paris moment carried more weight than it appeared on the surface. For Prince Harry, places tied to his past, especially those connected to Princess Diana, have always held deep personal meaning. So when that footage near the Pont de l'Alma tunnel began circulating, reactions weren't just public, they were emotional on multiple levels. Some commentators suggested that the location itself carries a strong historical and personal significance for Harry, making any public moment tied to it more sensitive than a typical appearance. Others viewed it differently, seeing it as part of a broader narrative about legacy and public storytelling. That contrast in interpretation is what fueled so much discussion around the moment. What stands out, though, is what people believe shifted afterward. Observers began noting a change in how the couple presented themselves publicly. Harry appeared more reserved, less reactive, while Meghan Markle maintained a composed, forward-facing presence. It wasn't dramatic or explosive, just a gradual shift in tone that became easier to spot over time. From there, public appearances started to feel more structured. Smiles looked more timed, interactions more measured, like everything was carefully managed under intense attention. Not necessarily conflict, not something clearly defined, but a sense that the dynamic had changed in a way people couldn't quite explain right away. By the time New York came around, that difference seemed more visible. The energy wasn't chaotic or confrontational, it was quieter than that, more controlled, more contained, and that's what made it stand out, because it didn't look like a moment falling apart, it looked like something slowly shifting beneath the surface, something subtle but hard to ignore once you noticed it.
But I have to just say, anyone who has doubted me over the past decade about this evil woman now needs to eat some humble pie, because this video designed to mentally torture her husband.
And what many believe started in Paris didn't end in New York. That's where it became visible, where the subtle shifts people had been noticing suddenly felt impossible to ignore. Every story has a rhythm, and this one doesn't move smoothly anymore. It feels uneven, like something slightly offbeat that keeps repeating. You notice it in the pauses between smiles, in the brief exchanges caught off camera, in those quiet gaps that last just a second too long and say more than any statement ever could. This isn't a picture-perfect fairy tale painted in bright, easy moments. It feels more layered than that. Flashes of glamour mixed with something harder to define. The lights still hit, the cameras still roll, the outfits still impress. But underneath it all, there's a different kind of energy that keeps showing through. Everything they say in public sounds polished, structured, carefully delivered. But it's the silence that people keep focusing on. The pauses, the timing, the way certain moments don't quite land the same way anymore. That's where the attention stays. Because whatever is shifting between Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, it isn't loud or explosive. It's quieter than that, more subtle. The kind of change that unfolds slowly, right in front of everyone, but only reveals itself if you're really paying attention.
It doesn't work for you to shoulders back, breasts out, headlights going, and try to look as bitchy as possible.
Behind closed doors, the story feels even more controlled, like two people who know exactly how everything is supposed to look, but are moving through it carefully, step by step. Every movement comes across deliberate, moments of tension followed by brief calm, like a pattern repeating itself. Conversations seem shorter, more measured, like both sides are choosing words carefully, holding back just enough to avoid saying too much. Prince Harry often appears more reserved in public settings, while Meghan Markle maintains a steady, composed tone, but even that can feel slightly strained under pressure. Together, it gives the impression of something highly structured, almost like a performance where every detail matters. Not chaotic, not explosive, but precise. And sometimes that precision is what draws the most attention, because when everything looks too controlled, people start looking for what's underneath. The more their public appearances are analyzed, the more those small details stand out. A pause that lingers a bit too long, a glance that doesn't quite connect, a moment where timing feels just slightly off. None of it is obvious on its own, but together it builds a bigger picture that keeps audiences watching closely. And that's where the real shift seems to sit. Maybe earlier moments felt more natural, more relaxed, more spontaneous. But over time, under constant attention and pressure, the dynamic appears to have changed, not in a loud or dramatic way, but in subtle, quiet adjustments that slowly reshape how everything comes across, right there in front of the cameras.
I just spoke to somebody that said their palace sources say perhaps the king would plan to meet with Prince Harry at the beginning of 2026. Meghan Markle has no desire to return to the UK because she knows how simply loathed she is there.
Every story reaches a final scene at some point. Some end loudly with headlines and statements. Others fade out so quietly you barely notice until it's already happened. For Prince Harry and Meghan Markle, what people speculate about isn't a dramatic public moment, but something far more subtle. The kind of shift that happens gradually, almost invisibly, until one day things just look different. The appearances change, the energy shifts, and people start asking questions that don't have clear answers. Because when public life and private emotion overlap this much, it creates pressure that's hard to measure from the outside. What looks like confidence can also be composure. What looks like distance can just as easily be focus or fatigue. And that's where the uncertainty keeps growing. Moments like the one in New York become symbolic, not because they explain everything, but because they reflect something people feel they're noticing over time. A pause here, a glance there, small details that get replayed and reinterpreted again and again. And that's what keeps the conversation going. Not a single event, not one clear turning point, but a series of moments that leave room for interpretation. Because in the space between what's shown and what's understood, understood, the biggest questions tend to stay unanswered. And that's exactly what keeps people watching.
She's sort of very needy, isn't she? She loves to be loved. And she hates the British people, that she'll never come back to this country because she knows people don't really want her back in this country.
And if you think this was the first time people started noticing a shift like this, think again, because long before the royal spotlight, there was another chapter, one that rarely gets discussed but still raises questions today. Before Prince Harry, there was Trevor Engelson, Meghan Markle's first husband. Their relationship began years before global fame, long before the headlines and royal attention. Over time, their split became part of the public record, though details have always been described differently depending on the source. What makes that earlier chapter relevant now, according to commentators, is the way people draw comparisons. Not conclusions, not confirmations, but patterns they think they recognize when looking at different phases of her life. Some say it adds context, others say it's simply speculation shaped by hindsight. Either way, it keeps the conversation going. Because when people look at moments like New York, they don't just see one night, they connect it to a bigger timeline, trying to understand how things evolve under pressure, attention, and constant scrutiny. And that's where interpretations start to build. If you want to explore that earlier chapter and how it's being discussed today, check out our previous breakdown on Trevor Engelson and that first relationship. It adds another layer to the story people keep debating. If you made it this far, drop a comment with your take. Hit like, share this with someone who's been following the story, and subscribe for more deep dives. See you in the next one.